All right. Those are some of the proper ways to use a for statement. Now, what if you should forget something? For instance, each part of each expression in the header of a loop of a for loop is optional, oddly enough. So let's take a line from the previous program we just had. So you have three parts to this, and if you leave out any of them, well, they're optional, but well, let's try it this way. If the initialization is left out, like int row equals 1, then no initialization is performed. But to be honest, you ought to try this. First of all, if you leave this part out, then the compiler will stop you here and say, I don't know what row is. If you put this in, it'll yell at you that you did initialize it. So this is a mistake, and the computer will let it go, but actually the compiler will yell at you. This is a hard one to make. Let's talk about the second one. If you leave the second line out, now you still have to put the semicolons in, or else the compiler will yell that the for statement isn't formatted right. But if you leave the second part out, if the condition's left out, then the for loop has no problem with that. It's always considered to be true. If there's no condition to check, then it's always going to be true. Unfortunately, that means you're going to run into an infinite loop. If the increment is left out, then no increment operations performed. So row doesn't change its value. So it'll keep checking, is row less than max row? And as long as it is, it'll keep on going. This is another example of an infinite loop. So you still need the semicolons. Both semicolons are required. But you can leave this part out and it'll run, but it'll just run forever. I'd like to, before we take a look at iterators and for loops, I'd like to take a look at a couple examples of, well, that's enough listening to me. Let's try it this way. I'd like you to be able to tell me what's going to happen. There we go. Here's the simple question. How many times is the word hi printed? Giving this code snippet. Take a few seconds right now, pause the video, and see if you can come up with an answer. Okay, let's walk through this and see if we can figure it out. Let's see, we have an example of a nested loop, so let's do this backwards. So this prints out hi. It's the body of this for loop. This for loop goes from 1 to 20. Careful, it might go less than 20, it might go 19, but it says equal, so it's 1 to 20. Goes by ones, okay. So this alone prints out the word hi 20 times. But this loop that goes 20 times is the body of this loop, which goes, let's see, 1 goes by ones all the way up to 50, goes 50 times. So this will run once, and this will run 20 times, and this will run when x equals 2, and this will run 20 times, and this will run when x equals 3, and this will run 20 times. So 20 times 50, I think this thing is going to run 100, 200 rather, 20 times 50. I think it's going to run 1,000 times. I have a modified version of this. Let's see if I can. Yeah, even if this is difficult to see, I've just fixed this one line. So I put a counter in for C, and I just want a number to show up in front of each hi. I started it at 0, and I'd like to go up by ones, just so I can count the number of highs, so I can see if I can get this right. So I'm going to run this now. And it looks like, yow, it looks like, oh, looks like I didn't clear the terminal window yet, but let's see. So high starts at 1, then there's 2, then 3, and it looks like it keeps on going all the way up to 1,000. 1,000 highs. I have another example that I'd like you to take a look at. And again, I'd like you to stop, pause the video, and tell me this time how many times you see the word high printed. Okay, this is just like the last one. We have a print statement inside of a for loop. But this time, this nested for loop is a little bit different because we don't go from 1 to 20, we go from 1 to A. What's A? Well, A is initialized in the loop above this. All right, so we're going to have to play computer. Let's walk through this. So A first equals 20. Is it less than 25? Yes, it is. Here, off we go. So let's do this loop. B is equal to 1. Okay. Is B less than 20? Yes, it is. So print high. Again, is B less than... Oh, increment it. B is now 2. Is that less than 20? Yes, it is. Print high. B is now 3. Is B less than 20? Yes, it is. Okay. So apparently this will print high 20 times. And when it's done with this loop, it'll go back to this loop. And now that it's 20, it was 20, we increment it by 1, and now A is equal to 21. And then we go through this. But careful, watch now. B equals 1. Is B less than 21? Yep. Print high. Increment it. B equals 2. Is 2 less than 21? So apparently, it'll go through 21 times. So let's see if I got that. When X was, I'm just going to jot down some notes here. So when A was 20, it went 20 times. When A was 21, it went 21 times. When A was 22, it went 22 times. 23, it went 23 times. And A goes all the way up to 24. So that's going to run 24 times. And that'll be all we get out of this. So 20 plus 21 plus 22 plus 23 plus 24 is going to be equal to, this loop runs and prints the word high 110 times.